Hey everyone, and welcome back to the PTG Rail Routes Learning series. On today's video, I'm going to be taking a look at the freeware Moorgate extension, which is available from Backdated Trainsim and links on to Dovetail Games East Coast Mainline London to Peterborough route. And I'm going to be driving a full run of this route in a Class 313 between Moorgate and Welwyn Garden City, where we actually joined the Dovetail Games route at Drayton Park, which is around 2 or 3 miles away from here. The total distance of the journey is around 21 1/3 miles, and I'm following the real-life timetable of train 2 Victor 63, which is the 12:38 service, calling at Old Street, Essex Road, Highbury and Islington, Drayton Park, Finsbury Park, Harringay, Hornsey, Alexandra Palace, New Southgate, Oakleigh Park, New Barnet, Hadley Wood, Potter's Bar, Brookmans Park, Welham Green, Hatfield, and finally Welwyn Garden City. The train that I'm driving on this journey today is the Armstrong Powerhouse Wagons Class 313 unit, which is available from the Armstrong Powerhouse website. The livery that it's in is actually ex-WAGN First Capital Connect livery. So in 2006, the train operating company West Anglia Great Northern, which is abbreviated to WAGN, was taken over by First Capital Connect, and I've actually set this scenario in 2007 for a more interesting variety of liveries than you would normally see. So we're going to see some GNER and some early Grand Central on this journey today, which is just a little bit different from my previous videos on the East Coast Mainline route. So the Class 313 is a dual voltage electric multiple unit which has been in service since 1976. It was manufactured by British Rail Engineering Limited at York Works between 1976 and 1977, and is part of the Brell 1972 PEP family of electric multiple units. A total of 64 of these units were constructed, formed of 3 coaches per train set. They have a maximum speed on the DC mode, which is for the third rail, of 30 miles per hour, and in AC mode for the overhead wires, they have a maximum speed of 75 miles per hour. They have a power output of 880 horsepower. And so we're actually starting here at Moorgate on the third rail DC mode, and then we're going to be changing power modes to the AC system once we reach Drayton Park station. Now in the cab of the Class 313, there's a few things I'm going to do quickly to set up the unit ready for departure. The first thing I need to do is to move the reversing handle into the neutral position and reset the AWS self-test sequence. Unlike with most other trains, I actually need to press another button to be able to move the reversing handle, which is the F key, which is the dead man's handle. And now that I've done that, it's unlocked the reversing handle so I can move it into the correct position. And now I've reset the AWS self-test sequence there. I'm not going to put the reversing handle into forward until it's time for us to depart away from Moorgate. So now that I've done that, let's just have a look around a few more cab controls. You can see there in front of us I've got the driver reminder appliance, which is the red button, which I've just clicked out now, as the signal you can just see there is displaying a green aspect at present. I now need to set up the lighting system in the loco. So I'm going to press H to turn on the headlights, and now it's actually quite difficult, I find, to read these switches, so I'm just having to hover over them to see what's what. So that's the tail light switch, which I need to turn off, and next to that is the marker light switch, which I've now turned on. I'm also going to turn on the destination indicator light. I've got the cab light on just for a moment so I could see a little bit better in here, but I will be turning that off soon, just before we depart away from here. And so I'm just checking now if there's anything else. I don't think there's any other switches that I've missed here. So all of the lights are now on and set correctly. And in a moment I'm going to go outside of the train to set up the destination display so that it actually says Welwyn Garden City. In the meantime, let's just have a quick look at some of the cab controls here. So right in front of us, we've got a standard West Code 3-step brake. So if I move the handle towards me there, you've got the release position, notch 1, notch 2, notch 3, which is full service, though I wouldn't normally use that on the journey unless I have to, and then a 4th position, which is the emergency position. Now if I continue around the cab here, we've got the horn control in front of us, which is a 2-tone horn, controlled with the spacebar and the B key. Just above that, we've got the speedometer measured in miles per hour, and as already mentioned, the maximum speed of this train is 75 miles per hour, which we should just about be able to get up to on this journey today, although because the stops are quite close together, we're not going to get too much chance to get to above 70 miles per hour. And now if I continue around the cab here, you can see there's a number 3 there, and that's the slider, as a reminder for the driver as to how long the train is. So I'm just going to slide that to the 6 now, so that I'm reminded that I do have a 6-car train. And then just above that, we've got the brake gauges, and so the needle on the right's the one that I'm interested in, which is the brake cylinder pressure gauge. When that's pointing at 0, the brakes are fully released, and then the further up that's pointing, the harder the brakes are applied. Over here we've got the buttons to change the power mode, which I'm not going to go into detail about until we actually reach Drayton Park station, when I'll actually need to change the power mode. One final thing I want to do here, just before departing away, is to pull the window down there so the window's open and the train sounds better. I'll also just point out that you know that I use a modified FOV setting here, and this is what it looks like in this train with my FOV setting. I think it just looks a bit too far zoomed back, so I'm actually going to just go 1 notch up on the mouse wheel just to zoom in slightly, and I think that this is the best position for the FOV for this particular train. So now I've had a look around the cab, let's just have a quick look at the front of the train, change the destination display, and then depart and head out towards Welwyn Garden City. And so now looking at the front of the train, you can see the white box there on the right-hand side, and if I just press F7 a few times, we'll get the destination display scrolling. F8 scrolls up and F7 scrolls down. And we're now on Willesden Junction, Welwyn Garden City, so that's now the correct destination for our journey. So let's now jump back into the cab and get started towards Welwyn Garden City. Departing away from Moorgate, the starting speed limit here is 10 miles per hour, and we've got around half a mile to go to our first stop, which is Old Street. And so just as we reach 10 miles per hour there, I've just idled the power to allow the train to coast until we can accelerate further. As you can see, the speed limit is about to go up to 30 miles per hour, though at this speed it does take a little while for the train to fully pass the board. And so I've got to sort of try and guess when the rear of the train has passed it. I do know it's shortly after entering a left-hand curve, which is coming up just ahead. So we're now on the left-hand curve, and I'm going to accelerate probably in about 5 to 10 seconds from now. You can already see the tunnel exit up ahead for the next station. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to idle the power as we reach 30 miles per hour, and I'm going to put the brakes on into step 2 just before we enter the platform, and that should bring our speed down quite nicely. I'm aiming to stop right at the end of the platform, just before the next tunnel. We're actually going to be passing through tunnels for the next few stops until we reach Drayton Park, and so we're going to be constantly underground for now. I've now got the brakes on in step 2, which should bring our speed down nicely for the end of the platform here. Our speed is coming off. The brakes on the Class 313 I find are particularly good. It certainly helps me with driving. But it's because they're built, I think, for start-stop commuter services, so you really want good braking and good acceleration. So this should be about the right place to stop. Departing away from Old Street, the starting speed limit is 30 miles per hour, and at this point we've got around 1¼ miles to go to our next stop, which is Essex Road. Now that we've reached 30 miles per hour, just idled the power to allow the train to coast for now. I will add a small amount of power if I need to, if we slow down too much. Just to say, the route that we're actually on at the minute is originally called the Northern City Line, as this used to be part of the London Underground network until 1976, when it was connected to the East Coast Main Line at Finsbury Park, and the modern-day service pattern began. I realised that earlier I didn't actually talk much about the throttle control. So the throttle control on this unit has 4 steps of power, which are known as shunt, series, parallel and weak field. And they also act a bit like a tap changer, which you can find on some older locomotives. So when I increase the power, you will find that the power will gradually increase. And in the meantime, say if I went from series to parallel, the number of amps would start to increase, but if I then moved the power handle back to the series position, it would then hold the power at that setting. Also, if you want to lower the power setting, you actually have to move the power handle all of the way back to notch 0 before pulling the power handle back up to the desired setting. So going along here, I've put the power handle up, I went up to the series mode just for a moment, and then I went back to shunt, just to increase the power slightly and ensure that we don't lose any speed, and now we're maintaining a good 30 miles per hour. Once I see the next platform coming up, where it will be coming up in a moment, I'm then going to apply the brakes as I did at the previous station up to step 2, just before entering the platform, which should bring our speed down nicely in time for the end of the platform. Reduce the braking for a moment as we're stopping a little bit too early, and so we should now be stopping in just about the right place, stop just before the tunnel here. Departing away from Essex Road, the starting speed limit is 30 miles per hour, and we've got around half a mile to go to the next stop, which is Highbury and Islington. Now we've reached 30 miles per hour, I've just idled the power to allow the train to coast, and we shouldn't need any more power along here due to the close proximity of the next station. We're now coming up on Highbury and Islington, so I'm now going to apply the brakes up to step 2 just before entering the platform, and that's going to bring our speed down nicely in time for the end. Now reducing the braking just to try and ensure that we don't stop too early. And so this should be just about the right place to stop. Departing away from Highbury and Islington, the speed limit is still 30 miles per hour, and we've got around half a mile to go to the next stop, which is Drayton Park. I'm now idling the power at just above 25 miles per hour, as there is a short 1 in 70 downward gradient which is coming up in a moment, which will cause us to increase in speed. So I'm going to have to keep an eye on that just to ensure that we don't go above 30 miles per hour. And then after the short downward gradient, there's then a steep upward gradient as steep as 1 in 38, which will help us to slow down on the approaches to Drayton Park station. So now on the upward gradient, we're just coming up to the end of the tunnel and the start of overhead wire running. So you're going to see the overhead catenary coming in a second. And here I'm aiming to stop at the end of the platform, and then once I do so, I'm going to change power modes from DC over to AC. Just using light step 1 braking there to bring our speed down, and we're now coming towards the end of the platform here. I'm going to have to stop just after the signal there has disappeared. We're actually further away from the end of the platform than it actually looks. And so this should be about the right place to stop. And now that I've stopped, I'm just going to open the doors and change power mode. So I need to click on the flap there that says 25 kilovolts AC, click and hold the button for pantograph up, and now press and hold the set reset button until the 25 kilovolt AC light illuminates and the line light illuminates. And now I've done that, I know that the power mode has been changed. Parting away from Drayton Park, the starting speed limit is still 30 miles per hour, though it's very shortly going up to 35 miles per hour. And at this point we've got just over 3/4 of a mile to go to our next stop, which is Finsbury Park. Just stayed on a low power setting for a moment there, just to ensure that we didn't end up accelerating too quickly. We're cleared to accelerate to 35 once we passed under the overbridge that we just did. And now we're about to start on a steep upward gradient, as steep as 1 in 41. So I'm going to leave the power mode in parallel at this point. And we won't be able to get up to 35 miles per hour, but it seems a good setting to try and maintain a speed fairly close to that as we climb this gradient. And then once the gradient levels out just before Finsbury Park station, I will then cut off the power and prepare to brake. We're now coming up on the East Coast Main Line, which we passed under just a moment ago, and that's going to be on our right-hand side in a moment. I've now cut the power as we've approached the level gradient, and we're also approaching the platform here at Finsbury Park station. Now going to apply some light braking to bring our speed down. Here at Finsbury Park I need to aim to stop at the 6-car stop sign, which is near the end of the platform. And it's actually quite difficult to judge, as when you're driving from the cab view it always looks like you're further along than you actually are, so I may end up undershooting or overshooting very slightly on the 6-car sign. I just had to increase the braking to full service just for a moment to ensure we slowed down quick enough. Then I reduced the braking once again, and this should be about the right place to stop. Departing away from Finsbury Park, the starting speed limit is currently 35 miles per hour, though it will shortly be dropping down to 30 miles per hour. And we've got just under 1 mile to go to the next stop, which is Harringay. Now going to shut off the power and just apply some light braking here just to ensure that we're back down to 30 as I got up to around 32 miles per hour. So we've just entered the 30 mile per hour speed zone now. In a moment we're going to cross over onto the down slow line, and then as soon as we do so the speed limit will be going up to 55 miles per hour. So the speed limit's now going up to 55. I'm going to increase the power immediately as this train takes a moment to respond to my input, and so by the time the train has responded then we will be clear of or should I say the rear of the train will be clear so that we can accelerate up to the speed limit. The speed limit's about to go up further again to 60 miles per hour, and what I'm going to do along here now is I'm going to idle the power at around 45 and I'm going to apply the brakes around the area of the next AWS ramp. So I've now made a step 2 brake application, and here you're going to see that actually the brake gauge hasn't responded at this point. And that's because this train uses a mixture of air and regenerative braking, and so the air braking doesn't come into force until we're at around 25 miles per hour. And now as you can see the air braking has now taken a hold, and you can now see on the brake gauge what setting I'm currently in. So here I'm aiming to stop at the 4 and 6 sign, which is just at the end of the platform. And this should be about the right place to stop. Departing away from Harringay, the starting speed limit is 60 miles per hour, and at this point we've got around 2/3 of a mile to go to our next stop, which is Hornsey. When accelerating in this train, I generally start accelerating in series mode up until around 15 miles per hour, when I then go up to parallel, and then finally when I'm doing around 25 to 30 miles per hour, I then go up to the weak field setting. That maintains a roughly constant acceleration rate, so I've just idled the power there at that signal with 1/3 of a mile to go to our upcoming stop. I'm going to apply the brakes as we cross this next point on this right-hand curve. I've now made a step 2 brake application, which should bring our speed down quite nicely, so we enter the platform at no faster than 30 miles per hour. And here at Hornsey station, I need to stop at the S sign, which is at the end of the platform. And so this should be about the right place to stop. Departing away from Hornsey, the speed limit is currently 60 miles per hour, and we've got around 1 mile to go to our next stop, which is Alexandra Palace. Just before we entered Hornsey station there's actually Hornsey EMU depot that we passed on the right hand side, which is the main maintenance depot for First Capital Connect services in London. I say First Capital Connect, today it's actually Great Northern who've taken over from First Capital Connect, which is part of the Govia Thameslink Railway franchise. Now going to idle the power here at this AWS ramp with around half a mile to go to our stop. I've now made a step 2 brake application as we cross the point just there, which is the first point immediately after the signal. And that should bring our speed down nicely for the platform here at Alexandra Palace. Here at Alexandra Palace, I'm aiming to stop at the end of the platform. Slowing down just slightly too early there, so I released the brakes for a moment, and now I'm in a step 1 brake application to continue to bring our speed down. So we should now be stopping in just about the right place. Departing away from Alexandra Palace, the speed limit is currently 60 miles per hour, and we've got around 1.5 miles to go to our next stop, which is New Southgate. Just on our right hand side here is Welham Green Maintenance Depot, which is the maintenance depot for what was intercity services, GNER at this point when I've done this scenario, and today Virgin Trains East Coast in London. Also diverging at Alexandra Palace station is the Hertford Loop line, which continues and leaves the East Coast Main Line, goes through Hertford North and then rejoins just south of Stevenage station. The speed limit here is now going up to 75 miles per hour as we enter this tunnel. I'm going to idle the power as we reach the tunnel exit, as at that point we've then got just over half a mile to go to New Southgate station. So I've now idled the power to allow the train to coast, and I'm going to apply the brakes for our stop as we come up on this next signal. Just brake slightly harder there than perhaps I would normally need to, just to ensure that we slowed down quick enough. I actually didn't have the brakes in the correct setting at the start, so then I had to increase the braking just for a moment to ensure we would slow down in time. Here at New Southgate Station, I'm aiming to stop at the S sign, which is at the end of the platform, coming up just in a moment on the right-hand side. And so this should be just about the right place to stop. Departing New Southgate, the speed limit is currently 75 miles per hour, and we've got just under 2 miles to go to our next stop, which is Oakleigh Park. So just to talk about the track layout here on the East Coast Main Line, it's slightly more unusual than most routes where you've got the 2 slow lines on one side and the 2 fast lines on the other. On this route, the 2 fast lines are in the middle and the 2 slow lines are on the outside, so I'm on the down slow. Next to me on my right is the down fast line, and next to that is the up fast, and then finally on the far right is the up slow. As we enter this tunnel, we've got just under 1 mile to go to Oakleigh Park. I'm going to idle the power as we reach the end of this tunnel, and I'm going to apply the brakes as we reach the next signal. So I've now made a step 2 brake application, which should bring our speed down nicely in time for our stop. You can see the platforms coming up just ahead. At Oakleigh Park Station, I'm once again aiming to stop at the S sign, which is at the end of the platform. I've reduced the braking now as we're getting closer to the station, as we were going to stop a little bit too early otherwise. Currently in a comfortable step 1 brake application. You can see there's a 3 and 4 car stop sign just coming up on our left. And then the S is right there in the middle of the platform and also on our left with the TV monitors there. And so this should be about the right place to stop. Departing Oakleigh Park, the speed limit is still 75 miles per hour, and we've got around 3/4 of a mile to go to our next stop, which is New Barnet. I'm now going to idle the power there at just below 50 miles per hour, and I'm going to apply the brakes in a moment, just after the track starts turning here. We're just starting to turn to the left, and now I'm going to apply the brakes for our stop at New Barnet station. Here at New Barnet, I'm aiming to stop just before the signal here, which actually does fit the whole train into the platform. There is a stop marker a bit further up, which seems to be where the game is telling me the correct place to stop is. However, I find it hard to believe that you would have a stopping point beyond the signal in the platform, hence I'm going to stop just before the signal, with the whole train still fitting in. So this should be about the right place to stop. Departing New Barnet, the speed limit is still currently 75 miles per hour, with around 1.5 miles to go to our next stop, which is Hadley Wood. I'm now going to idle the power here at just over 60 miles per hour. In a moment we're going to be entering Hadley Wood South Tunnel. I'm going to apply the brakes as we enter the tunnel. So I've now made a step 2 brake application to bring our speed down. The platforms at Hadley Wood, the one on the right hand side, which is the middle platform, is no longer in use except for emergencies. It's actually fenced off from the footbridge, so you can't get on there anymore. But it's slightly staggered, so it's actually closer to us than the platform on our side, which can fool you slightly to thinking that you're not quite slowing down quick enough. So here at Hadley Wood, I'm aiming to stop at the 6-car stop sign, which is around 2/3 of the way along the platform. And so this should be about the right place to stop. Departing away from Hadley Wood, the speed limit is still 75 miles per hour, and we've got just over 2 miles to go to our next stop, which is Potter's Bar. Now passing through Hadley Wood North Tunnel. We're now entering Potter's Bar Tunnel with around 1.5 miles to go to our stop. Now going to idle the power at this tunnel exit with around 3/4 of a mile to go, and I'm going to apply the brakes for Potter's Bar as we reach the end of this left-hand curve here. You can now see the platforms coming up just ahead. Here at Potter's Bar I need to aim to stop at the 4 and 6 car stop sign, which is near the end of the roof on the right hand side. I've just reduced the braking momentarily, just to ensure that we don't end up slowing down too quickly. And so we're about to enter the platform at around 30 miles per hour. In fact, I've just released the brakes just for a moment. Now I'm going to reapply them as we enter the platform here. So just coming up on the 4 and 6 car stop sign on the right hand side there. And so if I stop here, this should be about the right place to stop. Departing away from Potter's Bar, the speed limit is still 75 miles per hour, and we've got around 1 3/4 miles to go to our next stop, which is Brookmans Park. Now going to idle the power at this signal, which is the first signal out of Potter's Bar. At this point we've got around 3/4 of a mile to go. We also just had a 55 mile per hour speed warning there for a speed limit that comes into force just before our stop. And so I'm going to apply the brakes now around 2 or 3 overhead gantries after this overbridge just here. So I did it around 2.5 there gantries, and I've now got the brakes on for our stop. Looks like I might be slowing down a little too early, so I'm just reducing the braking to step 1 for a moment. I could have probably waited until 3 to 3.5 gantries in all honesty. The speed limit here is now dropping to 55 miles per hour, though it's only a short speed limit which is in force for this station only, and then the speed limit returns back up to 75 miles per hour very shortly after departure away from Brookmans Park station. So I've just reduced, in fact released the braking for a moment. Now reapplying the brakes as we enter the platform here. Here at Brookmans Park I'm aiming to stop at the S sign at the end of the platform. So this should be just about the right place to stop. Departing away from Brookmans Park, the speed limit is 55 miles per hour and very quickly increasing to 75 miles per hour. And at this point we've got just over 1 mile to go to our next stop, which is Welham Green. I'm now going to idle the power at 55 miles per hour, and I'm going to apply the brakes for our stop as we reach the next signal. Once again here at Welham Green station, I'm aiming to stop at the S sign, which is at the end of the platform. And so this should be just about the right place to stop. Departing away from Welham Green, the starting speed limit is still 75 miles per hour, and at this point we've got around 2¼ miles to go to our next stop, which is Hatfield. At this first signal out of Welham Green, we've now got around 1 2/3 mile to go to Hatfield. I'm now going to idle the power at this signal just in with just over 3/4 mile to go. I'm going to apply the brakes for our stop just after entering the next left-hand curve. Now made a step 2 brake application, which should bring our speed down quite nicely. Notice the air braking system kicked in for a moment there at this speed, which I'm slightly surprised about. I'm not quite sure why that is. But we're back on the regenerative braking. We're now down to 40 miles per hour. I'm just going to reduce the braking slightly as we get closer to the platform. Also note that Hatfield is another station with staggered platforms. And as a result of that, once again, you can look like you're actually closer to your stopping point than you actually are. Here at Hatfield Station, I'm aiming to stop at the S sign at the end of the platform. And so this should be about the right place to stop. Departing away from Hatfield, the starting speed limit is still 75 miles per hour, and we've got around 2½ miles to go to our next and final stop, which is Welwyn Garden City. At this signal we've got around 1 3/4 miles to go to Welwyn Garden City. I also have to note that it's a single yellow signal, so at this point I'm going to idle the power. We've got 1 mile to go to the next signal. I'm going to start braking in a moment just to bring our speed down gently. With this particular route, the East Coast Main Line London to Peterborough, TPWS has been partially simulated, and so as you come towards a red signal you need to pass over the TPWS grid at no faster than 20 miles per hour or the emergency brakes on the train will be triggered. So I'm just bringing our speed down now, as I'm also trying to look out for the signal ahead and the TPWS grids in the middle of the track to ensure there's not going to be a problem. I see that the signal has now in fact jumped to a single yellow aspect, so I'm not going to be stopped here. I'm now just going to increase the power a bit to bring our speed up slightly. There is a 25 mile per hour speed restriction coming up soon, and so I've got to prepare to slow down for that soon. So I'm now idling at 45 miles per hour. With this signal now clear, it means that we are cleared into the platform at Welwyn Garden City station. The 25 mile per hour speed restriction comes into force just after the overbridge that you can see just ahead. So I'm just bringing our speed down gently now. We are on a single yellow signal, which means that the signal at the end of the platform in Welwyn Garden City is displaying a red aspect. So I recommend entering the platform at no faster than 20 miles per hour, just to ensure that you don't end up tripping the TPWS system and having an emergency brake application. I'm just slowing down now to 25 for this point just here. I'm going to continue to slow down to 20 miles per hour and then release the brakes and allow the train to coast. Here at Welwyn Garden City station, I'm aiming to stop at the 6 and 8 car stop sign, which is near the end of the platform. You can now see the 6 and 8 sign coming up on the right hand side near the platform number markers there. And so I'm just going to brake gently, and I'm going to try and stop in the right place and not stop before the signs, which is, as already mentioned, so easy to do in this unit. And so this should be about the right place to stop. Thank you very much for watching this video. I really do hope that you did enjoy it. If you did, then please don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, please don't forget that for the latest channel updates, you can find me on Facebook, with the link to my Facebook page in the description of this video. And if you'd like to sponsor anything towards the work that I do, then please visit my Patreon page for more information. Again, the link for that is in the description of this video. And I've also put in the description of the video the links to purchase the Armstrong Powerhouse wagons, Class 313 unit, and the freeware link to download the Backdated Trainsim Moorgate branch, so that you've got the bit between Drayton Park and Moorgate. So here we are, arrival at Welwyn Garden City.